Welcome to the Red Story, and just subscribe so I understand that everything is not in vain. Make some tea or coffee and listen to our new story, Crossroads of Choices. My name is Isabella Hartley, and I'm a 24-year-old marketing coordinator living in the bustling city of Chicago. I work at a dynamic advertising firm where creativity and charisma are the currencies of success. Life had been a whirlwind of client meetings, coffee runs, and late-night brainstorming sessions. Amidst all this, I was engaged to Ethan Reynolds, a 26-year-old software engineer. Ethan was the embodiment of stability, calm, dependable, and wonderfully kind. With his tousled brown hair and warm hazel eyes, he was the kind of man any woman would be lucky to have by her side. We met during our college years at Northwestern University. Our relationship was the stuff of romantic comedies, study dates at the library, shared umbrellas during surprise rainstorms, and whispered dreams about the future. He proposed to me under a sky full of fireworks on the 4th of July, and of course I said yes. Our families were thrilled, and wedding plans were slowly taking shape. But beneath the surface, I often felt a restlessness I couldn't quite name. Ethan was perfect, but perhaps too perfect. Our lives had fallen into a comfortable routine, and sometimes I craved more excitement, maybe a spark of unpredictability. At work, I reported directly to Richard Lawson, our firm's creative director. Richard was in his mid-40s, a man who exuded confidence and charm. Tall with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes, he had a reputation for being both brilliant and exacting. He was also married with 2 teenage kids, a picture-perfect family. Our professional relationship was strictly by the book at first. Emails about project deadlines, meetings to review campaign strategies, that sort of thing. But over time, our interactions became more relaxed. A joke here, a shared grin there. We began exchanging witty banter over email, which gradually shifted into texting. It was all in good fun, or so I told myself. One afternoon, while waiting for client feedback, Richard texted me a meme that had me stifling laughter at my desk. I replied with an equally ridiculous gif, and soon we were volleying jokes back and forth. The conversation, my heart skipped a beat, sure. He pulled over onto a quiet side road lined with towering pine trees, dusted with snow. "What's going on?" I asked, half nervous, half curious. He turned to face me fully. "There's been this tension between us. I think you feel it too." I swallowed hard. "Richard, He interrupted gently. "I know we're both in relationships, but I can't stop thinking about you." My mind raced. This was uncharted territory. "I didn't think you'd. I thought this was just harmless fun." He smiled wryly. "Maybe I crossed a line, but tell me honestly, am I alone in this?" I took a deep breath. "No, you're not." He reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "What do we do about it?" The air was thick with anticipation. Part of me screamed to stop, to think of Ethan, of the consequences. But another part, one that craved excitement, was louder. Without another word, we leaned into each other, and our lips met. The kiss was electric, a surge of adrenaline and forbidden desire. One thing led to another, and there, in the secluded embrace of his car, we crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Afterward, we sat in silence, the reality of what we'd done settling in. "Well," he said lightly, attempting to break the tension, "that was unexpected." I laughed nervously. "You could say that." "Are you okay?" he asked, concern in his eyes. I nodded. "Yeah, just processing." "Me too." We agreed to keep this between us and continued our journey. At the conference, we were the picture of professionalism. No one suspected a thing. When we returned to Chicago, Ethan was waiting for me outside the office, his face lighting up when he saw me. "Hey, beautiful," he greeted, pulling me into a warm hug. "Hi," I replied, guilt gnawing at me. "How was Milwaukee?" "Productive," I said, forcing a smile. "Great. I thought we could grab dinner at that new Italian place you mentioned." "Sounds perfect." As we strolled through the city streets, festive lights twinkling above, I tried to push aside my conflicted feelings. Ethan was attentive, asking about my trip, sharing stories from his week. That night, back at my apartment, one thing led to another, and we found ourselves tangled in sheets. The familiarity of this touch both comforting and unsettling. I couldn't shake the image of Richard from my mind. The next morning, I woke up to the soft glow of sunlight filtering through the curtains. Ethan was still asleep beside me, his expression peaceful. A wave of remorse washed over me. I slipped out of bed and made my way to the kitchen, my thoughts racing. How could I have been so reckless? I had betrayed Ethan, and for what? A fleeting thrill? I knew I couldn't keep this from him. Taking a deep breath, I returned to the bedroom. Ethan, I whispered, gently shaking his shoulder. He stirred, blinking up at me. Morning. Everything okay? I need to tell you something. He sat up, concern clouding his eyes. What is it? I looked down, unable to meet his gaze. I did something terrible. He was silent, waiting. On the trip to Milwaukee, I was with Richard. A heavy silence filled the room. You were with him, he repeated slowly. I nodded, tears welling up. I'm so sorry. It just happened, and I regret it. He stood up, pulling on his jeans. So, you slept with your boss? Yes, I whispered. He let out a bitter laugh. I should have seen this coming. What do you mean? He shook his head. Isabella, you've always been free-spirited. Maybe I ignored the signs because I loved you. Please, Ethan, I made a mistake. He looked at me, hurt evident in his eyes. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary. This was a choice. I reached out to him. I want to make things right. He stepped back. I don't think you can. I need some time. Please don't leave. He sighed, grabbing his jacket. I can't stay here right now. As he walked out the door, I felt a part of my world crumple. Desperate for comfort, I called my mother. Hi, sweetheart, she answered cheerfully. Mom, I need to talk. What's wrong? I told her everything, my voice shaking. There was a pause on the other end. Oh, Isabella, I messed up. She sighed. You did. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but you've always been impulsive. Mom, I need your support. I love you, but you need to hear the truth. You can't go through life making rash decisions and expect everyone to pick up the pieces. Her words stung. So you think this is all my fault? I think you need to take responsibility for your actions. I thought you'd understand. I understand that actions have consequences. I hung up, feeling more alone than ever. Days turned into weeks. Ethan didn't return my calls or texts. At work, Richard and I maintained a professional distance, but occasionally we'd find ourselves alone, and the cycle would repeat. Despite my guilt, I couldn't resist the pull. One evening, as we sat in his office after hours, I confessed I told Ethan about us. Richard raised an eyebrow. Bold move. He left me. He nodded thoughtfully. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? He leaned back in his chair. Look, Isabella, we're both adults. We'd enjoy each other's company. Let's not complicate things. Is that all this is to you? A casual fling. He shrugged. What else would it be? I felt the pang of disappointment. I thought maybe it meant more. He gave me a sympathetic smile. I have a family. I'm not looking to change that. I see. Don't overthink it, he advised. Just enjoy the moment. But I couldn't. The emptiness inside me was growing. One night, I found myself wandering the city streets, the festive decorations contrasting sharply with my mood. I ended up at the coffee shop where Ethan and I had our first date. Memories flooded back, the way he made me laugh, his thoughtful gestures, the comfort of his presence. I knew I had to make amends. The next day, I went to his apartment. He answered the door, surprise flickering across his face. Isabella, what are you doing here? I needed to see you. He hesitated before stepping aside. Come in. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. I've been doing a lot of thinking, I began, about me. He waited silently. I realize now how much I took you for granted. You deserve better. He sighed. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want to be honest. I want to try to fix things. He shook his head. I don't know if we can go back. Maybe not, I admitted, but I want to try. He looked at me, a mixture of sadness and resolve. Isabella, I loved you, but I can't be with someone I can't trust. I understand. A long silence stretched between us. Take care of yourself, he finally said, standing up. I nodded, accepting that this was goodbye. As I left his apartment, I felt a strange sense of closure. I couldn't undo the past, but I could learn from it. Back at work, I handed in my resignation. Richard was surprised. Are you sure about this? He asked. Yes, I need a fresh start. He nodded. I wish you the best. I found a new job at a nonprofit organization, focusing on community outreach. It was fulfilling work, and I felt like I was making a positive difference. Slowly, I began rebuilding my relationship with my mother. She saw the changes in me and offered her support. I'm proud of you, she told me one afternoon over coffee. Thank you, I said sincerely. As for Richard, our paths rarely crossed. I heard through the grapevine that he was still at the firm, business as usual. Reflecting on everything, I realized that I had been searching for something external to fill an internal void. Flirting affairs, they were temporary fixes for deeper issues I needed to address. I started attending therapy, working through my patterns and choices. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. One day, as I walked through the park, the snow gently falling around me, I felt a sense of peace. I didn't have all the answers, but I was on a path toward understanding myself better. Life is complicated, full of twists and turns. We make mistakes, but we also have the capacity to grow from them. At 24, I thought I had it all figured out. Now I know that life is a journey and I'm just getting started.